Well, howdy, folks. So, last night at Michigan State University, there was an active shooter situation. I haven't looked into any of this morning, but around 10 p.m. last night, there was somebody out there who had shot several people. And it seemed to be a short black man, which the police described very quickly. They had a picture of him. And normally the media wouldn't lead with that, but it was an active situation where they were telling people to shelter in place. Now, if you went and listened to the police scanners, you could then hear the police clearing buildings, clearing areas, and they did a fantastic manhunt, in my opinion. Somebody who has experience in these things to some degree, between the military and law enforcement and other things that I have done throughout my life, it seemed like they were doing really, really good. There was a picture of the gentleman, a video of the gentleman walking through someone's yard at some point, or across their front yard. There were reports that he was on, what street was that? Was it Hook Hill? Something like that. I can't recall. It was last night, and it's the next day in the afternoon. So, and I hadn't read up on it. But I did get the live information and was, tweeted out on Twitter. It looks like they got him. The guy actually committed suicide once he was cornered. And it sure seemed like it was him, given that he had a firearm and numerous magazines on his person. So, the whole incident was about 2 hours. It was about a 2-hour long thing, and it was done and over with. And unfortunately, 3 people were killed, 5 were injured. Maybe, again, those things have been updated. But what I want to make note of, right? That's the quick recap, the reassessment of it. What I want to make note of is all of the responses I was seeing on Twitter immediately. And I was really, really debating if I wanted to get into it. But I did retweet one thing, or quote tweet. This guy talking about how he felt so helpless, how this madness goes on continually, and yada, yada, yada. And my response is simple to that. You are a pathetic synthetic. This shows what I mean by this. A person that is so synthesized that they don't even take their own personal responsibility for their self-defense or the self-defense of their family, for any defense whatsoever. In fact, our society is so corrupt, it is so freaking insane, that people outsource every ounce of their lives 24/7. We don't even think about it. Most of us are just born into it. It is ridiculous. You're going to feel helpless if you give all of your power over to other people, which is what you've done by not carrying weapons on your persons, by not training, by not having skills available to survive. Look, guys, I'm no farmer, but I guarantee you I can go hunt. I guarantee you I will find a way to go trap animals. I guarantee you I will find wild fruit and berries and whatnot, right? Like, I know how to build shelters. I know how to make fire. I know how to do things to live very, very rough. And the only reason why I really don't is because I do like my luxury, but also I have women in my life. And when you have women in your life, there's some things, unless you have a lot of wealth, right? And you can completely set them up, and then you can have your own thing, right? But when you have women to take care of in your life, they like luxury too, and most of them do not want to rough it. That's not to say there isn't, country girls out there that get dirty and all that kind of stuff. But generally, the ladies like to be a little bit more pampered, to feel a lot more safe. And for me, I think that is a detriment to men. I believe that is part of this problem. The whole weak men, hard times thing, right? The weak men, hard times thing. When you have outsourced your own self-defense, you are scared that someone with a handgun, as far as I know that's what it was, and the assault yesterday, that someone with a handgun can come into a campus and just kill people, and everyone just be absolutely petrified of this. Absolutely petrified. Sorry about that. I had to stop. Is insane to me. I'm not saying you shouldn't be scared if in a situation, nor do I ever want to have to kill somebody, and the Lord has blessed me not to have done that. And it's really against my religion. But I also know that how I am in the moment. So it's one of those hard things, you gotta square that up. But the reality is I'm not gonna let my wife or children be raped. You think I'm gonna let my 18 going on 19-year-old daughter, I'm gonna let some evil person take her innocence from her if I can help it? No. You think I'm gonna let that happen to my wife if I can help it? No. What kind of cowardice, what kind of man are you that you say something? And again, I am actually not directing this particularly to that individual, which is why I'm not mentioning their name or anything, but it was just the statement on its face. How can you sit there and go, I feel so helpless in life. This stuff happens. These people just come in and murder. First off, okay, the CDC under the Obama era, right, did a study on handgun self-defense and the practicalities of that and how many lives it may save. And they found it could save up to 500,000 to 1 million lives a year. Something like that. It's an estimate. It's hard to say. It's hard to throw something out like that. Versus the 40,000 deaths. It's a big difference, right? We're talking about a factor of 10 almost. But, or nearly, I should say, not almost, whatever. I'm not always so precise with my words, but it is. It's like a factor of 10. It's ridiculous. And of that 40, it's not quite 40,000, but that 40 some odd thousand, the majority of those, over half, are suicides. Then you'll get into the category of what's not suicide. Well, that's all gang violence, folks. Almost all of it is. You can read the data on this if you have any sort of training in, let's say, law enforcement or, any sort of data on criminal statistics, that kind of stuff, criminal justice as far as a college degree. You would know that 90% of all murders are committed by people you know. That doesn't mean that you're going to be murdered by your family members or your cousins or your friends. No. The reason why 90% of all murders happen to people that they know is because the majority of murders are amongst criminals who happen to know each other. Or people involved with criminal elements. And again, they happen to know them. It's the murderer next door who kills his wife and kids and that kind of thing, or kills his wife because he's having an affair and wants to get out of his marriage but can't, or whatever ridiculous nonsense that individual's thinking. That is a rarity. That's not something that is typically happening, right? It is gang violence. And with that is small caliber firearms. There are less homicides because we have better medical technology, but these people aren't going around with generally rifles. They might have shotguns, but they're not going around with rifles, rifle caliber rounds, and murdering each other because you can't conceal those weapons easily. That's what is the reality of all this. I can conceal a handgun. You get a little 380, man. 380s are tiny. You can do some damage. Hell, I mean, you can get a 22 and do some freaking damage. So, to make this about assault weapons, of course, is a big lie. To make this about being helpless is well, that's you just being a pathetic synthetic. You have been allowed to be corrupted in your own mind to the realities of the world. And the reality of the world is, it is dangerous, my friends. We do not live in a pacifistic world. That is a notion of Christianity, and the fact that you live in this kind of society that is generally so safe, which it is for the majority of you, because if we take out all the major cities in the United States and all the major gang crime nonsense, basically we live in the safest country in the world. But again, men aren't really men anymore, or at least the men in the cities. They don't know how to provide. They don't know how to start a fire if they had to, or maybe to potentially hunt or whatever. They don't know how to live off the land in any way. And you could say, but Bill, we don't need to anymore. And I would say, how pathetic, you synthetic. Of course we need to. We always need to, because all of this, my friends, me driving this car right now is an illusion. One solar flare wipes all this out. And then what are we left with? You know, it reminds me of the Ancient Apocalypse series. It's just out on Netflix. And here recently, what is Gary from Nerdrotic's new show? Is it Forbidden whatever it is? What is a show they do on Sunday nights? I love that kind of stuff, by the way, guys. And you know, the reason why I do is because I understand that we live in a synthetic world. I understand that 90% of what you were taught and told is made up nonsense, and it really is. Now, there is some extrapolation of theories and this and that. We kind of understand some things, but we really don't understand very much, and that is a reality that needs to be embraced, because we don't. Our hubris is insane. It's outstanding. And we do know from the traditions of our fathers, going back 50,000 years, probably further than that, actually, but about 50,000 years ago, we know that, or supposedly we know, because I don't know how you know anything in the past since you weren't there, but we believe, based on evidence from dating and scientific methods and whatnot, that human beings entered Europe, Western Europe, and started interbreeding with Neanderthals. Now, I would suggest that Neanderthals were just different kinds of people, and we're actually, modern scientists are splitting hairs, but that's a whole nother topic. My point is that you'll hear that, and then somewhere else you'll read 40,000 years. And then somewhere else you might read 30,000. And then somewhere else you'll say there's evidence that human beings were in Europe 150,000 years ago. So which is it, my friends? Which is it? That is a question that needs to be had. Well, we don't know. And I always appreciate when these scientists suggest that they don't know. I like guys like Dr. Andrew Huberman, who actually is like, well, we don't know for sure. This might be outside of my wheelhouse. Well, I speculate. You know, or Rhonda Patrick, or those kind of people. I'm just naming off popular known scientists who do podcasts, right? But this is science, not the guy who expounds and extrapolates and says, well, you see, the coronavirus, it can't spread with you know, just air breathing, so you don't need the mask. And then comes back a couple months later, well, you see, you do need the mask. And I was just saying that because we needed that PPE for people in the healthcare system. And it's like, no, dude, no. Anthony Fauci's a scummy, lying bureaucrat and not a scientist. He's never been a scientist. All right. By the way, having a medical degree does not make you a scientist. That's an engineering degree. Thank you. The end. By the way, just saying. So let's get back to the gun thing and the shooting. You know, it's tragic. It's unfortunate. Those families have lost their lives. I can't imagine, you know, thinking of such a thing. It's like thinking about, you know, randomly, you know, like if my wife got in a car accident and passed, and then I would be a widow with a baby. It would be unimaginable to me. I mean, I could think about it, I could contemplate it, but it's just not a reality, and it would not be a reality. In fact, to me, immediately when it happened, it would take me days or weeks or months for that really to set in. And this is what happens to people who aren't prepared for the realities of the world. Tragedy creates a severe type of trauma, PTSD. It can do that, right, when you're highly naive. And it sets them up to be further psychopathologized, because now that they're weak and in a broken state from this tragic incident that they could have actually prepared for and protected themselves from, they are now in a state that is even weaker, feeling even more helpless and even more pathetic. And then they call for more and more government. And that is the crux of it all, because the pathetic synthetic, or the synthetic pathetic, either way, those people are actually slaves. They have outsourced their personal responsibility to the point where they are literally mental and physical slaves. They are afraid to defend themselves and their families for fear of being locked up, my friends. That is a disgusting notion. You are afraid to defend your family. You would let your wife or children be raped or murdered because you are afraid of the consequences of the society? No, you're weak and pathetic in my mind, and you're not a man. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, that's all I got for today, guys. This has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well.